Well, hello, my name is Christopher Scott, and I am a small groups pastor of a local church. And in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how to use the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guide and commentary to lead a small group through the book of 1 Corinthians. Okay, so that's pretty much what I'm going to do today in this video. I'm going to have 4 different sections I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk to you as a facilitator about how you want to prepare to facilitate and lead a group. I'm going to talk to you about the format you're going to set up for your group. I'm going to tell you how to facilitate a small group using the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guides, and then I'm going to give you a 5-minute introduction to the book of 1 Corinthians. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So, how do you want to prepare to facilitate a small group Bible study? The first thing you want to do is you want to prepare for your small group Bible study by praying, right? Pray for the people in your group and pray for the material, the book of the Bible that you're going to be covering, right? That it would work in the hearts of your people. Next thing you want to do is you want to read through the passage a couple times quickly, right? So each week in the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guide, there's going to be a lesson that selects a passage, right? So let's say lesson 3 is 1 Corinthians chapter 5 and chapter 6. So take some time and read chapter 5 and 6 a couple times on your own and just go through it quickly. Don't try to interpret it, do anything crazy or anything like that. Just read it quickly and get a good summary and feel for what's in there. Then what you want to do third is you want to go through the questions in the study guide on your own, right? Read the question and maybe jot down a couple answers to each question based on your own understanding of the passage. Then you want to read through the commentary that comes along with the Bible study guide, right? This one is called Be Wise, Discern the Difference Between man's knowledge and God's wisdom. Okay, so that's something else you want to do is read the commentary, then go back through the Bible study guide, look at your answers and see if there's anything you might want to change or add to it or subtract based on what you read in the commentary. So that's how you want to prepare to facilitate a small group meeting. First of all, you want to pray. Second, you want to read the passage a couple times quickly. Third, go through the Bible study guide and answer the questions on your own. Fourth, read the commentary to help you. And then fifth, go back through your answers and see if there's anything you might like to change, okay? So that's what you want to do to prepare to facilitate a small group. How do you format your small group, okay? So at our church, we encourage our groups to have 3 main elements to each small group meeting, that they are consistent and do in the same order, that each group does these 3 things in the same order, and then there's 2 additional things you can do at the beginning or at the end of your group, okay? So the 3 things each small group needs to do and do in order is start with Unifying Question, then they want to read the passage, and they're going to go through the questions, okay? So the Unifying Question is where we encourage our small groups to ask at the beginning of their group, what did you all take away from the message at church over the weekend? Okay, what did you learn? What stood out to you? What did you like? What had you never heard before? Get people to talk about what they heard at church on the weekend and what they learned. And we do that for a couple reasons. One, because we want to make sure a small group does not replace people attending church on the weekend. We want people to be attending church on the weekend as well as to be in a small group. And asking the Unifying Question helps to make sure that people are attending church because it shows them the value of being at church, okay? Additionally, if your group meets on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it's easy to forget what the message was about at church on Sunday, okay? So it helps people to remember what they learned. Additionally, it helps people to learn to apply what they're learning, okay? So that's why we ask the Unifying Question. Then next, after you do the Unifying Question, you want to read the passage from that week's lesson, okay? So you want to read the passage. Let's say you're in lesson 7 of the Wiersbe Guide is on spiritual gifts, chapter 14. So if your group is new, what you need to do as a facilitator is you need to read the passage for everybody. Never ever call on somebody to read unless you know that they're a good reader and that they like to read, okay? So unless you know that they're a good reader and that they like to read. So that's something you want to do, is have someone read it if you know, or you can have your phone play it on the YouVersion Bible app, but have it play it so everyone can read it. Now the third thing you want to do is go through the discussion guide, right? Just read the questions, ask it, throw it out there, and then walk through each question one by one. Okay, so that's how you want to format the group. Those are 3 elements: the Unifying Question, read the passage, and then walk through the questions. Each group should also probably do some prayer time, either at the beginning or the end, and some snacks at the beginning or the end, but that's up to you. You can do those however you might like to. So, how do you facilitate the group using the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guide, okay? The Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guide for 1 Corinthians is called Discern the Difference Between Man's Knowledge and God's Wisdom, okay? It's 8 lessons that goes through the book of Corinthians. 1 Corinthians is 16 chapters, so you're roughly going to cover 2 chapters a week, which is a lot, but you can do it, okay? So when you're going to facilitate a small group, how many weeks should you spend on each lesson, right? So that's really up to you as a facilitator. I encourage you to spend a little time in the Bible study guide and try to get a feel for how much you want to cover each week. Some groups, they like to cover an entire lesson each week. They move fast. Sometimes they skip questions. They don't feel irrelevant, but they make it through one lesson each week. That might be your group. That might be what you decide. You might decide, hey, this is some good material. 2 chapters is kind of a lot to cover each time we meet. So maybe we're going to do, 1 week we're going to do just the odd questions in the study guide. Another week we're just going to do the even questions, right? And then you're going to split it up. Or you might say we're going to do questions 1 through 7 this week. The next week we're going to do questions 8 through 15 next week. That's another idea that you might do. So and that's what you might go for. Or you might say we're going to take 3 weeks per lesson. We're going to do questions 1 through 5 one week, questions 6 through 10 the next week, questions 11 through 15 the next week. That, if you have a bigger group, you're probably going to need to do that more often because it takes you longer to get through it. So the Wiersbe Bible Study Guides also have a bonus lesson, a 9th lesson that I really encourage your group to do, where it encourages everybody to kind of go back through the guide, go back through the lesson, and see what they really learned and took away from the book as a whole, not just each individual lesson, okay? So, how is the Wiersbe Guide formatted, okay? So it's formatted into 5 different sections in the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guide. There's 5 different sections in it, okay? The first 2 questions of each lesson, right? So there's 5 sections in each lesson, right? So the first section is the getting started questions, okay? And that's usually 2 questions that helps people just make some basic observations of what they see going on in the biblical text, okay? What they see going on in the biblical text. They're not going to get into any deep theological issues and understand or anything like that. They're just going to say, what do I see here, right? What's going on? What's being said? It's pretty basic. That's the getting started. Then questions 3 through 10 are the going deeper questions, and that's going to be really focused on interpreting what does the passage mean, okay? So Wiersbe's going to have some Bible commentary excerpts in here. He's going to take you to other parts of the Bible and have you read those to help you figure out what does this passage mean and how are we supposed to interpret it, okay? And if there's one section your group is going to get bogged down in and spend a lot of time in, it's going to be the going deeper section. So you really got to make sure the group's staying on topic, keep them moving, keep them focused, and keep them working through the questions, okay? The third section within each lesson is the looking inward section. It's usually 2 questions, the looking inward section. Usually 2 to 3 questions where it encourages people to start to internalize and personalize what they have read and what they're learning. So how do they relate to what they're learning? How do they relate to what they've read? How does it match what they've heard before? How does it match what they've done in their own life? Things like that. And so it's going to kind of start to bring the topic home a little bit into each person's life. So then the 4th question is probably the most important. The 4th section is probably the most important section. It's the going forward section, right? And that's usually questions 14. Pretty much, it's usually just one question, question 14, where it encourages each person to pick 1 or 2 things that they're going to apply from their life to from the passage to their life, right? So pick a couple things from the passage they've learned, that they've talked about, that they're going to actually do to apply to their life, is what they're going to do. Or there might be a verse in there they want to memorize for the week, so that might be something they want to do. And when you do the looking inward and the going forward sections, since those are a little bit more application-based, you might want to subgroup your group up into smaller groups, right? So if there's 9 people in your small group, you might say, you 3 are here, you 3 go to the kitchen, you 3 go to the entryway, the doorway, and talk about these 3 questions, these 2 sections, and how you're applying it. So that might be an idea. Then the last section is the seeking help section, which is something where Wiersbe encourages each person to write out a prayer to the Holy Spirit, asking him to help that person apply what they learned to their lives, right? So that's how the Wiersbe Bible Study Guide is formatted, okay? The 5 different sections. So, a couple good reminders for you to have when you facilitate a small group, okay? Here's some additional tips you might want to know about and use when you facilitate a small group. Remember that you're supposed to facilitate, not teach, okay? You're supposed to facilitate, not teach. Your job is not to, preach a sermon, mentor, coach, anything like that. You facilitate people, and your main textbook is the Bible. You're facilitating them through a discussion of the Bible, and you're using a tool to help you do that, and that's the Bible study guide. So facilitate them talking through the Bible and what it means to them and how they apply it to their lives. That's what you want to do. It's also good to remember that application is more important than completion. Okay, application is more important than completion. So make sure your main goal should not be to get through the lesson each week. Your main goal should be finding ways to help people apply what they're learning to their lives. And if that means you might need to spread a lesson out over a couple weeks, that's totally okay, all right? Third thing you might want to remember when facilitating, some facilitating tips, is communicate with your group each week about what lesson you're in and what questions you're going to be covering, right? So as a facilitator, I would encourage you to designate a communication person in your group, someone in your group that will communicate regularly with the group each week about what lesson you're in and what questions you're going to be covering the next week. Because what you really want to do is you want to help people work through the Bible on their own and work through some of the questions on their own before they come to group, if at all possible. They're going to get a lot more out of it if they do that. And if you have somebody that regularly tells everybody each week what lesson you're in and what questions are going to be covered, it will help them do that. Also, don't skip the looking inward or the going forward sections. Those are probably the two most important sections in the Bible study guide, so don't skip those. Make sure you leave plenty of time for that. Lastly, what do you do if someone shows up to group and they don't have a Bible study guide, right? So at our church, usually we ask for $10 to cover the cost of the Bible study guides. So let's say someone buys one for $10 and 2 weeks later they come back and they don't have it. What we encourage you to do is to loan this to someone, let them use it for that week, but then ask for it back, right? And so it's $10 usually for each guide. If someone likes to read and they want to study God's Word a little more in depth and they want a commentary, go ahead and give them a copy of the commentary. They don't have to buy it if they don't want. It's just, go for it and get it and let them discover and read God's Word more on their own, okay? And for our small groups, I print a lot of the material I just covered onto some cardstock, so this should be in your box if you're studying your material and getting ready. There should be some cardstock in there kind of laying out some of the material I just covered as well if you wanted to see it in print form. So that's how you prepare for your small group, that's how you format your small group, and that's how you facilitate a discussion using the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guide, okay? So I want to next give you a brief introduction to the book of 1 Corinthians, okay? So it's good sometimes to kind of have a big broad overview of the book before you start studying it verse by verse and passage by passage. So 1 Corinthians is the first of two letters that we have in the New Testament, right? So the New Testament is made up of 27 books. 13 of those books Paul wrote, and then he wrote 1 Corinthians is one of those 13 books that Paul wrote that we have in the Bible. So when I give you an introduction to 1 Corinthians, I'm going to give you 6 topics. We're going to cover 6 different things. Who the author was, the audience he was writing to, the date of the book. I'm going to give you an outline of the book, the key verse, and then a key theme of the book. And those are 6 things you kind of want to keep in mind as you facilitate a discussion. And as people are talking about different topics within the book, try to keep them in mind under this broad overview, right? And you might want to mention some of these things as you go through the discussion as well. So the author of the book of Corinthians, as you probably already know, is the Apostle Paul, okay? And the audience that he was writing to were the believers in Corinth, right? These were people with pride in themselves and their spiritual gifts. They had a lot of pride in themselves and their spiritual gifts. Paul had been there in about AD 50 to plant the church and begin the church there. And he stayed there for 18 months planting the church, getting them going. So he spent a year and a half with these people getting the church going. And it's interesting because Paul likely wrote 4 different letters to the believers in Corinth. You might say, 4? I thought there's 2. Well, there's 2 that are included in our Bible, right? There's 2 in our Bible, but there's probably 4 total letters that he wrote to them. And we know that because in 1 Corinthians 5:9, he talks about a letter he had already written to them when 1 Corinthians comes to them, right? That's 1 Corinthians 5:9, he talks about that. Then we have 1 Corinthians that he wrote in 57 AD. He wrote that likely from Ephesus, the city of Ephesus. And then in 2 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 8 through 12, he references a quote-unquote sharp letter, right? A very pointed, sharp letter that was carried by Titus to the believers in Corinth. And then we have the book of 2 Corinthians, which was kind of his letter expressing his gratitude that they had changed their lifestyle and their attitudes based on that sharp letter, right? So those are 4 letters that Paul likely wrote to the believers in Corinth, okay? I mentioned the date of this letter is probably about 57 AD. So to give you a feel for the New Testament, there's 27 books in the New Testament. Okay, 1 Corinthians was written in 57 AD. The first 2 letters of the New Testament written were in 49 or 50 AD. That was the book of Galatians and the book of James, 49 or 50 right in there. So this one's pretty early, right? So 49 or 50, this one's in 57. The last book of the New Testament written was in 95 AD, the book of Revelation by John, okay? So this letter was written probably before a lot of the Gospels were even written. Usually people will say Matthew, Mark, and Luke were written in the mid-60s, somewhere in there. So this letter was probably written before the Gospels, which is kind of interesting, okay? An outline of the book that I adapt, that's from Warren Wiersbe, he gives the greeting is the first 3 verses of chapter 1. That's Paul's basic greeting. Then he talks about reproof, the report of sin in the church. That's 1 Corinthians 1, 4 through 6:20. Then he talks about instruction, the reply to their questions that they had. That's 1 Corinthians chapter 7, 1 through chapter 16, verse 12. And then he gives a brief conclusion at the end of chapter 16. That's a pretty basic outline. The key verses of the book of Corinthians, according to Warren Wiersbe, is 1 Corinthians chapter 2. Let's see how fast I can find it for you here. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 6 through 8. That's the key verses for the book. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 6 through 8 says, "Yet I am among mature believers. I do speak with words of wisdom, but not the kind of wisdom that belongs to this world or to the rulers of this world, who are soon forgotten. No, the wisdom we speak of is the mystery of God, his plan that was previously hidden, even though he made it known for ultimate glory before the world began. But the rulers of this world have not understood it. For if they had, they would not have crucified our Lord Jesus Christ." Okay, and that goes to the title of the Warren Wiersbe Bible Study Guide, right? It's called "Discern the Difference Between Man's Knowledge and God's Wisdom." And God's wisdom is the gospel that was given through Jesus Christ, that He died and resurrected for our sins, and that's God's knowledge, right, about things. So the key theme is God's wisdom, as I also talked about. So I pray that this would be a great Bible study for your small group. It's 8 lessons with a 9th bonus lesson that covers 16 chapters in 1 Corinthians. So it might be tough to get through it in 8 or 9 weeks, but you can do it if you want, or stretch it out longer. And I encourage you, if you want to use this Bible study guide in your small group, I have links down there in the description. I'm on Amazon. You can buy this material. It is, I do get a small affiliate code. I'm an affiliate for Amazon, so I do get a small commission if you buy anything from those links that helps support the ministry in creating these videos. So my name is Christopher Scott. Thanks for watching. I hope to catch you in another video. If you want to subscribe to my channel, you can subscribe up there and get updates for future videos. If you want to learn about how to use the Wiersbe Bible Study Guides for other books of the Bible, I have those over there. I have some other 5-minute introductions to books of the Bible down there, and some small group facilitator tips down there. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you again soon for another video.